I got one question and one question only for today's podcast. What's wrong with the Lightning?
Break them up. Season's over.
What, I mean, what is that? What was that in Sunrise? How do you not beat that team and lose 2-1?
Well, it reminds you, I mean, the Lightning had not lost a game in regulation since January 28th to be exact. And this game reminded you a lot of that stretch they played in January where they had 16 games in 29 days. They traveled all over the country, different time zones, a lot of road games, and went 7-8-1, but played really good defense.
Yeah.
And once again, they played good defense.
Yep.
And they allowed 2 goals or less again and just can't put enough in the net. They had their chances, had a lot of power plays, 7 power plays.
Yeah.
5 of them were full power plays.
One was a 4-minute. Yeah.
Including a double minor, which is 2 power plays in that one.
Yeah.
And they weren't able to score. The power play let them down, but they had their chances. They held Florida in check for the most part. I think they had 53 shot attempts, which is low. But, you know, Alexander Barkov got 2 by Vazzy.
Yeah.
And the Panthers end up winning 2-1, snapping the Lightning's 8-game win streak and points in 10 straight.
Bobrovsky was sensational. It was wild, even to the last flurry there at the end. And the Lightning hit some posts in this game, but, you know, they emptied the net, obviously, and I think they had a power play for like the last, 20 seconds or so. So they had an extra man, but I want to say Hedman hit the post in the last few seconds. Like, it was wild. Yep. There was a scramble in front of Bobrovsky. So, you know, they almost stole a point there at the very end.
Yep.
Very entertaining game, up tempo.
Well, late McDonough had a shorthanded breakaway. It was a great read by McDonough. I mean, to steal that puck, was a tremendous read. And he goes to breakaway and just can't get the puck up high enough.
1 on none, he couldn't lift it. Yeah, he couldn't get it up high, and you know, obviously if he buries that, you're at least walking away with something. But pretty good run, 8 wins in a row, and I think only Edmonton had longer streaks this year. They had 11 and an 8-game winning streak, I think, this year, if I'm not mistaken. But
Winnipeg did.
Winnipeg. I'm sorry, Winnipeg, the Jets. Yeah, it was the Jets. So, you know, I guess they're back to their losing ways. I don't know how else to explain it, but they don't have a quick turnaround, right? They go from Sunrise to playing tonight at Emily Arena.
The Columbus Blue Jackets in town tonight. The Columbus was already in town as that game was going on, so they're resting.
Yeah. I assume that you wouldn't play Vasilevsky in back-to-back nights, right?
I would assume Jonas Johansson, who's now back from injury, will get the start tonight. But Andre Vasilevsky has started, 10 in a row, 11 in a row, something like that.
Yeah.
Granted, they had the 2-week break for the Four Nations in there. He did play both games of the back-to-back right before that, but knowing he was going to have 2 weeks off after that. But with this and knowing they've got 2 more games this week on Thursday and Saturday, my guess is Jonas Johansson will be in net tonight.
Yeah. Vasilevsky's been absolutely sensational. And I like the way they're playing because, you know, they're not giving up anything cheap for the most part. You don't see a lot of turnovers in their own zone. And, you know, they had a couple rushes, but they managed to stifle those. So, and, you know, Florida plays much like the Lightning has lately. When they get a 1-goal lead on you, that third period was tough to get many shots. You know, they made you go 200 feet and the whole 9 yards, but it was entertaining game. Florida's very good. Now they didn't have a full complement of their players. I think Tkachuk was out too, right? Wasn't he?
Matthew Tkachuk's probably out for the rest of the regular season. They're hoping to get him back by the playoffs. But that also gives them LTIR relief, and they can go over the cap now.
Oh, that's
based
true.
On his salary if he's not back before the end of the regular season.
So we're T-minus what until the trade deadline?
Friday afternoon.
Okay.
So 3 days.
I thought it was interesting. I was reading some quotes from John Cooper. Eduardo Encino wrote a story, I think, on the Tampa Bay Times, Tampa.com, where Cooper says, you know, they're in much better cap shape than they've ever been, really, in the last 4 or 5 years. But there's a lot of teams that are looking for players too, and there might not be as a large of a pool of guys that can really help them. So it's interesting. Like, I don't know if they can match up their need with the number of people after the same guy, or
there's going to be some teams this week that have to make that decision. Are we selling? Are we staying put, or are we going for it?
Yeah.
that's going to become more clear this week as teams have to make that decision now. I think there's been some on the fence, and
right.
But there's those teams that your borderline playoff team, but are you really got a shot to win it, or do you want to go ahead and try to rebuild? And those are decisions teams have to make. So
yeah, all those things will be impactful on the Lightning, and it's been a nice run. But hopefully, we can start another streak here. Man, it's hard hockey to win 8 in a row, 9 in a row, even with Winnipeg 11 in a row. Like that's really difficult to do, and obviously it propelled them. Now I think Toronto may have won. Obviously, Florida won, so
Toronto lost in overtime.
Or they did lose.
They lost in a shootout.
Okay, so they got a point, but they were up. I think 2-0, 2-1.
So Toronto and Florida are tied for the lead in the division now.
Gotcha.
Toronto has the tie break on that.
Okay.
They've played one less game than Florida. That's why they're officially at the top of the standings. The Lightning are now 5 points back.
Out. Yeah.
They have 2 games in hand on Florida, 1 on Toronto. 5 points back of both.
Gotcha. Well, they're right where they need to be, and then some. So that's good.
But more importantly, with 22 games to play, they are 8 points above the playoff cut line.
Yeah, that's
with 22 to play. So
that's a good spot to be in right now, especially the way they're playing. If they can continue to stay healthy. What else? We got all kinds of things going on in football. Not the least of which some free agency stuff, and we'll get into that in just a minute. But want to remind you guys, go to International Plaza Mall. If you haven't been there, what's taking you so long? I talk about this all the time. Breitling Boutique. They're near the center of the mall. If you've ever been there at Christmas time, sort of where Santa always hangs out, they're upstairs, and you're going to find this fantastic store, one of the best Swiss watchmakers in the world, right? The Breitling company has been in business for over 140 years. They've been in International Plaza for more than 5. And, since before Christmas, they've had this special going on with their chronomat watches, which is what they're known for. And it's the 104th year anniversary of the NFL. They have all 32 teams represented with these special team watches. They have the team colors on the face of these beautiful chronomat watches, the logo, and it's a limited edition. So good luck. There might be maybe 1 or 2 left of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I'm not really sure. We need to check in with them. But if you're a fan of any team, any of the 32 NFL teams, there's a chance you might find a beautiful chronomat watch for yourself. And if not that, they also have the Navitimers and sports watches too for your wife, your girlfriend. If she's on the go like my wife is with the kids banging around, these things are durable and they're absolutely beautiful watches, and they got all kinds of different color wristbands. It's Breitling Boutique, International Plaza Mall. And when you go there, make sure you tell them that you heard about it on Sports Day Tampa Bay. Now we're getting some football news, but on the broadcasting front, we had a retirement on How
about
Monday.
them Cowboys?
How about that retirement? How about that Key West? Jimmie Johnson. And this was weird for me because I there are certain things that I'm reminded of how old I am. And one of them would be that like Jimmie Johnson is retiring from his Fox broadcasting job. He's been on the air for more than 30 years. Is that possible? I mean,
yeah, we're old.
Woo! I mean, I still remember him coaching now. Even I remember him coaching the Dolphins, for God's sakes.
Well, what that means is it's just been over 30 years since the Cowboys have won a Super Bowl.
And that's the truth. That's an absolute fact, right?
Although Switzer did win one after he left.
Jimmie left. Switzer won the final, the third one that they won. But, it was Jimmy's guys and all that. And that's when Jerry Jones, we did it, baby. We did it our way, baby. Whatever he said after the Super Bowl. But, yeah, Jimmie Johnson still with fantastic hair. I mean, come on. Great lettuce. Always had it. Now it's white. Hall of Famer, clearly. One of the few coaches, I would say, Steve, that made that transition, right, from college football, where he won a national championship with Miami, to the Dallas Cowboys, where essentially his team won 3 Super Bowls. He was there for 2 of them. Hall of Fame coach, but also, quite a legacy on that Fox show. Man, when you think about how long those guys have been together, I know they added Michael Strahan, Kurt Menefee, that sort of thing. But man, you think about Terry and Howie and Strahan's been there now for a minute. But Jimmie, those three guys, they are Fox football, right? Like they are the studio show. I think Terry's close to 75.
I just can't believe Terry lasted longer than Jimmie.
I know, right? I mean, geez. So I talked to Terry when I was doing the book, The Player's Coach, shameless plug. It's available anywhere you get your books and on Amazon. And, we were talking about Fox and all that. And I told him how, Tom Moore, who's, God bless him, he's 86 years young, still working, still a senior consultant for the Buccaneers, has always told me, and we were talking about calling the book, titling the book something like Boots First, because that's how he wants to come off the football field. He does not want to do anything else, and he wants to work until he can't anymore, take another breath. That said, I was telling Terry that. Terry goes, yeah, that's the way I need to go out too. I've been at Fox so long, I told him just let me die right here on the set. Like, what? He goes, and it'd be great for ratings, wouldn't it? I was like, yeah, no, probably not. Probably wouldn't be good at all. But yeah, so I mean, Terry's been there forever. Howie is the guy that doesn't age. He looks the same. Howie looks terrific.
It'll be interesting who they try to replace. I mean, you could throw Gronk in there, who's they've been using.
He's kind of on there now, but not as a.
But if they want a coach type perspective,
yeah,
it'll be interesting because if you look at the Fox set, one of the things they do on that is everyone's a Super Bowl champ.
Yeah, I didn't realize that till you pointed that out.
I mean, from Terry to Howie to Strahan to Jimmy Johnson to Gronk they're all Super Bowl champs.
Right.
Like they don't put, I mean, they could change that, of course, but they don't put people that haven't won Super Bowls on that show. Mm-hmm. So what coach could you go get if you want a coach in that role? And knowing they probably want to get younger with it. Much of the reason they've added like Gronk and that. I mean, like someone who would have been perfect, but now he's coaching again and he's older, but is Pete Carroll.
Love Pete Carroll.
Belichick, or Bill Belichick could have been too.
Well, Belichick's phenomenal on TV. Of course, now he's in North Carolina, but yeah, he's great. You see what they're going to do? A Hard Knocks on North Carolina?
Yeah, because no NFL team after the Giants last year in the Saquon Barkley let them go.
No, we're good. We're good.
No team wanted any part of that in the offseason.
Oh God.
Yeah, we're not doing that.
Yeah, I can understand why. What were we talking? So Johnson, I thought would be good at TV, and he was pretty good. When I was listening to an interview he did with Colin Cowherd, and they said that sort of his role behind the scenes was he kind of coached everybody up. Like he took what the producer said, and then he would, whether it was Howie or Terry, kind of figure out, where they were going, and they joked and said he was kind of like an associate producer in a sense. He was always coaching, and that doesn't surprise me. But Johnson, like I said, he had success in college and in pros. I would have expected him to have done better at Miami. It was interesting because I covered Don Shula's last game. That's how old I am. But I covered Don Shula's last game. It was in Buffalo as a playoff game. And if you remember, Dan Marino was still, a very, capable quarterback at that time when Jimmie took over. And there was a time that in, what would it have been, going into the 1996 season, the Glazers had bought the team. They fired Sam Weich after the 95 season. And that was the season that both Brooks and Sapp were drafted. And then Tony Dungy came aboard, but he didn't come aboard right away. They were big game hunting for coaches, and one of the coaches they were after was Jimmie Johnson. And I had a sense that I think they offered the job to Spurrier, who went to bed one night and then turned it down the next morning. But JJ was one of their targets, and at the time, and it seems like a no-brainer now, at the time, he was weighing Trent Dilfer versus Dan Marino. So he took Dan Marino. Now, they never were able to win very consistently, and certainly never got back to a Super Bowl. And neither did Dilfer with the Bucs, although he did go with the Baltimore Ravens after he left here. But the Bucs did go to a Super Bowl in 2002, not with Tony Dungy. But Dungy won, got to the playoffs 4 out of 6 years. Jimmie didn't have quite that success, I think, in Miami. They had competitive teams, but they couldn't really become a complete team down there for whatever reason. And but he was suited for South Florida. Of course, he has his compound there in Key West, and goes fishing all the time, and still has his wife, and they have a great setup down there. And he brings a lot of coaches go down there. Belichick would go down there a lot, and they talk football and go fishing. But man, I don't know what account he had as far as his private jets go and things like that. But to think that he would do this once a week, but he'd get on a plane and fly out to L.A. for years and years and years, and it never seemed to bother him. But that Fox, pregame show, postgame show, when Fox got, I remember it was kind of a joke. When Fox got the NFL contract, all they were known for at that time was like The Simpsons, right? And it was like, wait a minute, this station is going to end up with NFL football, and now they've become, just a real consistent staple in our lives. And you're right, there hasn't been any change. So I think a coach would be what they need, because you've got the quarterback still in Terry, who never is going to retire. You've got Howie. Yeah, you could bring Gonk in there or somebody like him. You got Strahan, who's a player. So you're really missing that coach. So, yeah, Pete Carroll would be nice, except he's still coaching. I saw one which kind of makes sense. I don't know if he's good on TV, but Mike McCarthy is another Super Bowl winner that you could add to that mix.
That would be an interesting one.
Mm-hmm.
Another one they could try for, and it would obviously be a change, but there was rumors a year or two ago that he was possibly going to give up coaching and go do media, was Sean McVay.
Yes. Oh, whenever he does that, and I'm convinced that he will. A couple things, reasons why. One, the money is so big that these guys don't have to coach as long. Mm-hmm. And two, it's just a different generation. You know what I mean? Like, yep. A lot of these guys aren't going to grind it for, 35, 40 years, like Andy Reid or somebody. They're going to get their money. They're going to get out, and they're going to get a broadcast, because the broadcast money now is so enormous, right? It used to be a big gulf between what coaches made and what, top analysts make, and now not so much anymore. Now you can do TV and make as much or more. So, yeah, McVay would be one. It seems like he's going to coach at least another year with Stafford coming back, but
what about another Super Bowl winning coach that's not coaching right now here at the local FFCA?
I'll tell you what, man, I got too many jobs, you know what I mean? I'm on Barstool Sports, man. You ever sitting on a bar stool? These guys.
But I'm guessing Fox pays better.
I'm guessing. Well, I mean, he signed a multi-year deal with Barstool. And
I'm not saying he's not making money with Barstool.
Oh, he'd make way more with Fox, because that's a studio job. Yeah. Good. You know what? Damn interesting scenario you just brought up there. Really is. Because if he can't get back into coaching, which is what he wants to do, right? For whatever reason, the whole, text messages and things like that. If for some reason nobody will hire him, or even in the interim, like, why not? He was good at broadcasting. He was the lead voice on Monday Night Football. Him and Mike Tirico, and then he went back to the Raiders. But now that he's out, nothing says he couldn't make a ton of money on those studio shows and improve his visibility and all that. Now, is Fox going to have an issue with his past or whatnot? We know the Glazers have forgiven him, and they're putting him back into the Ring of Honor and that sort of thing. So there's a little bit of redemption there. But man, that would be a phone call I think I would make if I were Fox, because he was damn good when he did it before. He speaks in perfect sound bites, right? Mm-hmm. The only thing you have trouble is for getting him to criticize a player, because I don't think he's ever met one he didn't love. And but yeah, that's there's your coach right there. 61 years old, not 71 or 81, right? I like that. We can get him out of the Great Smoky Mountains.
Well, and if you're Gruden wanting to get back into coaching,
what's better than the visibility?
That could really rehab your
absolutely.
I don't want to say image, but
no, that's what you're doing. That's fair. That's fair. Get you
a
back
team
in the
going,
public
well,
eye.
he's knowledgeable, and he started breaking stuff down on the Fox pregame show, and
Right.
not that teams don't know that already, but
No, but I think if the fans and listen, like when I wrote the story when he got reinstated to the Ring of Honor, like we didn't really dwell on this very much, but there's a lot of people that thought that was the wrong thing, that the Glazers got it right the first time before they put him back in. And I understand that sentiment because of the nature of those text messages are misogynist and racist and that sort of thing, which he is, to his credit. I mean, he's completely and I think sincerely asked for forgiveness for that, and you know has I said he was wrong and that that's not in his heart and all that stuff. But having said all that, yeah, I don't know. I don't know if that would be a factor because these days, I mean, if you want to get somebody on your team that's you're a network, you look and see how many followers they have on YouTube or Twitter or whatever, and then you basically buy their followers. I mean, I like Pat McAfee a lot, but it's not lost on me too that he has so damn many people that have been following his show, which is why he's making over $30 million a year. And that's why he's on game day and college game day and stuff like that. But yeah, I mean, that would be an interesting one. It's a coveted seat. There's no doubt about it. If they're going to fill that chair, it definitely is that. And I think it is that coaching voice now that you're missing. You know,
mm-hmm.
Maybe they'll rotate some people in there. Not settle on any one guy right now. I don't know, but yeah, but I like that show, and I like Jimmy Johnson. I read his book, or most of it. I think I'm probably still got some chapters to read. But Dave Hyde with the Miami Herald, or was he with the Herald? Forgive me, Dave, if you're with the Fort Lauderdale Sun Sentinel, but wrote Jimmy Johnson's book called Swagger, and it's a good read, and it really, you know, captures just what his Miami teams were about, what his Cowboys teams were about. The Cowboys won 3 Super Bowls, 2 with Jimmie and 1 with Barry after he left. I think they could have won, and if you talk to Aikman and those guys, they could have won 5 or 6 if not for the fact that it was a different time in the NFL. And if you talk to anybody on those teams, they will tell you that Jimmie beat the hell out of them in practice. they went full pads, tackle to the ground, like they hit all the time. And I think I heard Jay Novacek or somebody talking about like I could have had another 4 or 5 years if I didn't have to play, full speed tackle football during the week. I think it was one of the reasons they were really good, but I also think it's one of the reasons why they didn't have that much longevity either. There was a little bit of news in the NFL, and it affects the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Your boy, Tee Higgins of your Cincinnati Bengals, one of Joe Burrow's favorite targets, is going to be franchised or has been franchised by the Cincinnati Bengals. So 1 year
for the
deal.
second time, which puts the number at $26 million.
Yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot, but
obviously they can reduce that if they come to a deal.
Yeah, if they come to it's a play. I always say it's a placeholder. They did that with the Bucs and Chris Godwin before his last deal. They franchised him as well, and then of course they lifted the franchise when they signed him to a long-term extension. Speaking of Chris Godwin, so you get Tee Higgins back, and he was potentially the number 1 wide receiver target in free agency. This kind of leaves Godwin as that guy, right? Like, and injury notwithstanding, you can't minimize it because last time we saw him, he had his ankle on backwards. So that's a big deal. But in terms of his production and his name value, and the fact that he came back from torn knee ligaments, and you saw how well he was able to do that. I don't know what his value is, but I don't think it got any easier for the Bucs to re-sign him with Tee Higgins, out of the picture, because he now becomes, the de facto, top wide receiver in free agency. I still say because of the injury, it's going to be difficult for a team, really any team, to kind of take on faith that he's going to be the same player, or that even he's, when he's going to make it back and be able to be effective. I mean, the injury, they were suggesting when he got hurt, what was it, like in November, that he would be possibly back for the Super Bowl, perhaps if they made it all the way. I'm here to tell you that would have never happened. That was pie in the sky, and it was frankly BS. But I do know somebody that sent me a text the other day, said he was playing golf, kind of hobbling around a little bit, but looks better. And for that reason, I think whoever does the deal, whether it's Tampa Bay or somebody else, I think you got to get some protection, some injury protection. And really, the only way you do that is to sort of have a pay to play type contract where, if you play this many games, you get this. If you play this many starts, you get that, and kind of have like a sliding scale based on his availability. Now, I don't know if Chris would agree to that, but structure of this new deal is going to be really, really important, really important. But, I think Tampa Bay would be wise to try to get him signed before the start of the new league year on March 12th, which is in about 9 days or so. I don't know that they will, but they should. And if he gets to the market, maybe one won't be robust and developed, but at least he'll be able to talk to teams. And look, let's face it, there's teams out there, whether you're the Patriots that have no receivers, or you're Dave Canales in Carolina that knows them, or Liam Cohen in Jacksonville that could use a veteran. He's going to get more than a few nibbles if he decides to make it to free agency. But I tend to think that maybe Chris will go, the way of a Mike Evans, where he just decides, hey, all things being the same, I want to finish my career in Tampa, and that would be great, for the Bucs to hear. Having said that, though, whether Chris comes back or not, I think one of the priorities, and Todd Bowles mentioned it. We're talking about free agency and the draft. It's like, oh, defense, anything defense, we need, guys with the ball hawks, we need this and that. But he also said very plainly, we need a receiver. And you're kind of like, yeah, I guess you do, because Mike Evans is in the final year of his latest 2-year deal, and he's going to be 32, 33 years old. How much longer can Mike Evans be Mike Evans? And now you have Godwin with a second fairly significant injury, right? We saw what Jalen McMillan was able to do the second half of the season, particularly the last 5 games. I think he had 8 touchdowns or something. And so you want to be able to draft and develop the next guys, right? The next tandem of receivers for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And it would not shock me, although I don't know about the first round, but it would not shock me if they were to take a receiver fairly high in this draft and pair him with Jalen McMillan and say that's going to be our Mike Evans and Chris Godwin for the next 10 years. Something to think about. And speaking of free agents, we all remember the name Alex Cappa because he was with the Buccaneers, a discovery by Jason Light. Wasn't able to, maybe he was part of the team during the Super Bowl season, but got hurt, and Aaron Stinney had to play in the playoffs in the Super Bowl. But Alex Cappa then became a free agent, got pretty good money to go to the Cincinnati Bengals, and then just forgot how to play. Like, I was looking at his numbers, man. And when I say numbers, I mean, Pro Football Focus and things like that. One of the worst pass blockers, or maybe the worst pass blocking guard in all of football. He ranked like 32nd, I think. And there's only 32 teams. But at his particular guard spot, he was down. Well, it should be 60 something. So he's down at the bottom. Just, you've probably watched him more than I have, just with the Bengals and whatnot. Not good, right? Not been good at all.
He hasn't, and it's been part of that Cincinnati offensive line that has not been good for Joe Burrow for years, which
hasn't.
Part of the reason he gets sacked as much and has been injured as much as he is.
Yeah.
And, they signed him out of desperation, obviously overpaid him.
They stretched,
back at it now.
Yep.
Because they haven't been able to draft and develop offensive linemen, and they needed a fix, and it didn't really work out. And they cut him today to save some money and on the cap and that.
He played better football here. I'm not sure what they were asking him to do or what the coaching was like there. And I don't have any illusions that the Bucs are going to try to bring him back here necessarily. They've got guys like Ben Bredesen to worry about, and they may well draft another offensive lineman, because that's one thing Jason Light can do in his sleep, and he hits on all of them. Whether it's Division 1, 2, 3, NIA, the PAL league, it doesn't matter. He seems to find these guys, and so wouldn't shock me if they invested some draft capital, but I don't see really room at the end for Alex Cappa, just because of what the tape says. There's bad tape, you're going to have a tough time, getting hired on on a good football team. So there's another thing that happened on Monday that reminded me of our great former college football writer, Matt Baker, now with The Athletic. And because he's with The Athletic, he's unable to talk to us on this podcast, which still chaps me a little bit. Having said that, remember he'd been working for
not our call, his call.
Oh, his call, their call.
Well,
New York Times call, I suppose. Yeah, whoever owns The Athletic at this point. But it was their call. Matt would love to. We'd love to have him. He'd love to do it. That said, while we were talking to him the last few years, he'd been working and really kind of spearheading a lot of the public records requests for this litigation that the ACC and particularly FSU and Clemson had against the ACC with respect to, I guess, TV rights or money that they were going to get paid.
Well, Florida State and Clemson were kind of looking to try to leave the ACC. Although
that's correct.
I don't know where they would go at this point.
No, I don't either.
So that becomes a problem.
Right.
And so now it looks like they've settled or are close to a settlement of this case.
Yeah.
Which the basics, from what I understand, and I'm not the expert, but the ACC will now divvy up some of the conference money based on television ratings.
Correct.
So schools that are presumably better schools and more alumni and play better, those are generally the teams people watch more, will get more of the money. So, the Florida States, the Clemsons, North Carolinas are hoping that they'll get more money out of this, but it keeps the conference together through 2036 with the 18 schools they currently have. So, and look, if you're Florida State and Clemson and you may not have anywhere to go if you left the conference, probably a good idea to settle, but you're still going to get more money out of this. So I don't know if it's a win-win, but
I think
everybody's getting something.
I think it's a win for the ACC to keep those.
Yes, I agree.
Yeah, because I think without those brands, the ACC is certainly almost an irrelevant conference at that point. But certainly a win for them. It's been going on for a while too. So
over a year, I believe.
Yeah, good to see that wrap up, and I'm sure Matt Baker has invested enough time in that situation for sure. So we're getting ever so closer to the start of free agency, and you want to check out all the latest news on that on TampaBay.com and in the Tampa Bay Times. Make sure you get by and see our friends at Breitling Boutique International Plaza Mall, near the center of the mall, upstairs. Some of the greatest Swiss watches you're ever going to find. Of course, they've been in business for over 140 years. Go check out the NFL's 140th year anniversary edition. All 32 teams represented in that while they last. And I'm telling you, the customer service second to none. Also have watches for your wife, for your girlfriend. It's Breitling Boutique, International Plaza Mall. Be very appreciative if you tell them that you heard about it on Sports Day Tampa Bay. Thanks for listening. For Steve Versnick, I'm Alex Stroud, the Tampa Bay Times. Have a great day, everybody.